Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
A page from the FBI's publicly released documents into the investigation of Hillary Clinton's private server revealed that a group literally called the Shadow Government was overseeing this investigation. I am not kidding. So this was a very powerful group of very high-ranking state officials, some referred to as the Seventh Floor Group and the Shadow Government. This group met every single Wednesday. They discussed the FOIA process, congressional records, and everything Clinton related to FOIA congressional inquiries. So some of the people on this list include John Kerry and Jonathan Feiner, who's chief of staff and director of policy planning at the State Department, and Patrick Kennedy, Undersecretary of State for Management. And we'll talk a little bit about Patrick Kennedy. His name pops up a little bit later in the show, but my goodness. And then, of course, now we can kind of see why John Kerry maybe had a little pull there in Ecuador with getting Julian Assange's internet cut off. Now, David Knight is on the ground in Vegas with more on this story.
David Knight for Infowars.com here in Las Vegas at UNLV, the site of tomorrow's debate, the final debate before the presidential election. We have a story that just came out at Infowars.com talking about recently released FBI files that refer to a shadow government. Yeah, the shadow government has come out of the shadows. That's the amazing thing about this. We're talking about personal attacks that are absolutely irrelevant and made up from 30 or 40 years ago against Donald Trump. That's all the media talks about. But they don't talk about their own admission that there's a shadow government, that Hillary Clinton wants to create a hemispheric union with open borders, open trade, a North American union. She doesn't refer to it as that, but she refers to the shadow government in these emails. This is a group also called the Seventh Floor Group that was part of the State Department, including people like John Kerry, who just shut down RT, froze their accounts in the UK, and shut down the internet for Julian Assange. Why? Because information is getting out. They're terrified of the public seeing that everything that the so-called conspiracy theorists have been telling you is absolutely true. We could see this. We could infer this from what was going on. But now we have the actual documents, just as we told you for a decade or 2 decades that the government was spying on you in various ways. We had NSA whistleblowers 10 years before Snowden came out. It was when the Snowden documents hit that people began to pay attention. People still are not really paying attention to what's going on with Hillary Clinton. And it's because she's such a master of deception with this shadow government. And now we see that they even call it that. Will the people wake up? Now, the other people involved in it besides John Kerry is also Patrick Kennedy. He came into the news yesterday as he was offering positions to the FBI if they would play along with classifications on emails. That's the kind of play to pay that is going on even within the government itself. That's the corruption that we've reached. Now, of course, there is a shadow government. We could tell you that there was a shadow government by looking at the fact that the FBI director let Hillary Clinton off, saying that she had committed all these felonies, but don't worry, nobody in their right mind would prosecute her. But don't you try this at home, we'll prosecute you. Now, we said at the time that was absolutely inconsistent, but it was consistent with what Comey and Loretta Lynch had been doing with Hillary Clinton for decades, acting as her lawyer, doing her taxes at the accounting firm where they were partners, and HSBC being let off by Loretta Lynch, where Comey was on the board of directors, and the fact that the two of them let off Sandy Berger, who did what? He went in, confiscated documents out of the National Archive to cover for the Clintons, destroyed those documents, and he was let off by Comey and Lynch without prosecution. So join us. We're going to be here for the debate. We're going to be going around Las Vegas talking to people pre-debate, and we're going to have a lot of coverage at Infowars.com, 13 hours of live coverage on tomorrow's debate. For Infowars.com, I'm David Knight.
Now, here's a story out of the cancer of corruption that is the Clinton campaign that the mainstream media was actually forced to report on. Now, these are reports that a State Department official is accused of offering quid pro quo in the Clinton email scandal. An unnamed FBI official alleges that Patrick Kennedy asked the agency to downgrade classified emails in exchange for FBI agents to be placed in more countries. So this is in an interview. This unnamed official says Patrick Kennedy, the Undersecretary of State for Management, tried in late June or early July of last year to get the FBI to change a classified email to unclassified. They said that they were heavily pressuring him to change this classified email to unclassified. And they'd asked for his assistance in altering the email's classification in exchange for a quid pro quo. And so this would mean that they would allow the FBI to place more agents in countries where they are presently forbidden. So this is really interesting here, how you'll see that they go through the effort to redact some names, protect some people, but yet they're willing to throw Patrick Kennedy under the bus. And of course, he's part of that shadow government there that was overseeing the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. And now we are getting reports out of the Daily Caller. This was an interview transcript that was given directly to them. They're saying the FBI agents are really upset about the fact that James Comey, how he handled it and decided not to pursue charges. They say he stood in the way of the Clinton email investigation. They said that this is a textbook case where a grand jury should have been convened but was not. That is appalling. We talk about it in the office and don't know how Comey can keep going. So this agent was also surprised that the Bureau did not bother to search Clinton's house during the investigation. Are you kidding me? I mean, it is shocking and surprising, but then frankly, how can any of us be surprised anymore at all of the amount of corruption that is coming out surrounding Hillary Clinton and her campaign that the media refuses to talk about and cover because it involves them as well. And this whole thing could come down like a house of cards, and that's why they are propping her up. Now, we're also finding out that top Hillary Clinton aides agreed to accept cash from lobbyists who are working on behalf of foreign governments. So this is another email. Campaign manager Robbie Mook replied to an email chain discussing the campaign's policy toward accepting contributions from foreign registered agents. He said he was okay just taking the money and dealing with any attacks. Clinton campaign spokeswoman Jennifer Palmieri responded, "Take the money." So this is how they are. They don't really care what it's going to look like. And here they point out Clinton appears to have been unaware of this decision because about a week later, Huma Abedin wrote to Mook saying that Hillary Clinton found out about these exchanges from the papers, that the campaign had decided to accept donations subject to the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And you can see in this article there a lot of the different countries where there's accepting money from Iraq, Libya, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Libya. I mean, just all over the place. It's very messy, but they don't care. They want the big checks from wherever they can get them. All of these donations brought in about $700,000 to the Clinton campaign. Nothing to see here, folks, though. The mainstream media says there are no bombshell revelations. So will we find out more from WikiLeaks? We don't know, because a state actor had Julian Assange's internet connection cut there at the Ecuadorian embassy. Margaret Howell has more.
Multiple sources are confirming that former Secretary of State John Kerry, he demanded that the Ecuadorian embassy cut off Julian Assange's internet access. And we know that his internet access was cut off this Saturday at 5 p.m. GMT. Now, we can't confirm whether or not it was related to this demand that John Kerry made of Ecuador, but here's what we know. So John Kerry, and there's an article up on our website written by Paul Joseph Watson. Take a look at it in its entirety. This is what we know. So the Secretary of State, John Kerry, demanded that Ecuador stop WikiLeaks from publishing documents damaging to Hillary Clinton's campaign. This happening back in September. Now, this bombshell is coming out of the whistleblower organization itself, and we're confirming this through tweets. Now, this breaking information, it's coming from multiple sources. It says that Kerry asked Ecuador to stop Assange from publishing Clinton documents during the FARC peace negotiations. Now, we know that he was in Colombia around September the 26th when this conversation supposedly took place. Here we are in October, and we know that this may have taken some time. It wasn't overnight, but at the behest of Kerry, it looks like they may have actually cut off his internet because he's publishing these emails related to Clinton. Now, the last email that we have from Assange is this email regarding the Goldman Sachs bankers, her calling Americans who want a closed border policy un-American. She goes on to say other things that aren't very flattering about us. Take a look at this article. It's up on our website. While you're at it, be sure to download our app, Infowars.com/app. I'm Margaret Howell reporting for Infowars.com.
So this is absolutely an unprecedented time to be in live. A lot of myself and the Infowars staff are all kind of remarking about how unbelievable it is, about how much of an influence we're having on this current election. half the reason being, probably the majority of the reason being, we're the only outlets that dare to give you the truth and speak about all of the scandals surrounding Hillary Clinton, the mainstream media, all of the corruption, all of the collusion. And now we're actually witnessing the mainstream media vaporizing right before our very eyes. People are in full awareness that they're not reporting the truth and that they are circling the wagons, protecting their own. They become a fully weaponized outlet, and they're not even afraid to hide their bias anymore at this point. There's an article up at Infowars.com. This one's coming from The Last Refuge, and they point out how under normal, non-corrupt circumstances, there are at least 100 stories out right now that should be top headlines, but they're not covering it. And the media, here's why. This is a great point. If the media lose this election, all their influence and affluence will vaporize. So they're really in a situation where there's no risk from continuing the current objective. They're protecting their own, protecting themselves. It goes to point out there was an email between Fox News, Wall Street Journal, expose around Newsmax. So Newsmax was supposedly supporting immigration and amnesty behind the scenes, but they were putting on a conservative ruse out there, for their viewership. And then, of course, we know that there was this whole Never Trumper movement that started, and it's not accidental that almost all of the Never Trumpers came directly from inside this conservative media enterprise. A lot of those people who are pushing the Never Trumper movement are these people who are behind the scenes in support of these major progressive agendas, but then they want their readership to believe that they are part of the conservative movement. It's crazy. And that's why they'll support Hillary Clinton versus Never Trump, even though Hillary Clinton would be terrible for conservatives in this country. It doesn't make sense. And then we also know with this WikiLeaks release that there was actually a Politico reporter offering the Clinton camp a chance to edit the story. He actually calls himself a hack. This is Glenn Thrush, and he says, "No worries, because I have become a hack, I will send you the whole section that pertains to you. Please don't share or tell anyone I did this. Tell me if I effed up anything." So I just wonder if all of these media personalities, these are really good writers at one point. Do they realize that they've totally thrown their journalism career away with their pride? He calls himself a hack, which, it means a journalist who is now just pumping out stuff really formulaic, no really basic news. Someone just hands him this and says, okay, report that verbatim. So this is what he's doing, and he's given the Clinton camp the chance to edit the story before it even gets published. And here's something else really remarkable. The media hacks are now openly admitting that they are biased coastal elites who are out to stop Trump. Now, we already know this, but because they know that nobody trusts them and believes them, now they're openly saying, okay, well, fine, you're right, we are out to stop Trump. Now will you believe us that we're out to destroy Trump? So this was during a broadcast on MSNBC Tuesday. Several journalists acknowledged that they're going as far, the case is the corporate bought-off establishment media doesn't even pretend to hide that they're one-sided, completely biased presentation of events. And so during this broadcast, they went so far as to describe themselves as coastal elites in favor of the rigged political system, so long as it stops people like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump rising to prominence. And of course, they've got to hide all of their collusion. But that's what I'm saying. The reason why the media, the reason why the FBI, all of these other agencies are protecting Hillary Clinton, it's not about Hillary Clinton. It is about the house of cards that she represents. And if they don't get her in, if Trump is able to get in, this entire house of cards is going to come crumbling down. And here's another huge story that you're only going to hear here and other places. A Navy officer is actually warning Alaskans to prepare for war.
Right now on Infowars.com. Navy officer tells Alaskans to prepare for war. An unnamed former Navy official has warned the residents of Alaska to prepare for an invasion in the event of war between the United States and Russia. The Daily Star is reporting that a former high-ranking Navy official has evidence that suggests Russia is preparing to invade Alaska if war breaks out between the United States and Russia. Why would Russia be preparing for war? Why would Russia be invading the United States? Well, they've said if Hillary Clinton wins, that means war. We've had John Kerry go on television threatening Russia with cyber attacks. We've had the Democrats blame the Russians on rigged elections with no proof. And yet Americans are still clueless that all of this is going on. So perhaps Russia is sick of our corrupt leaders. Perhaps it's time for Americans to be sick of them too. Russians disguised as highway road crews are allegedly already in Alaska preparing to serve in an asymmetrical role during a full-scale invasion. Another source claimed Russians in civilian clothing have been seen moving into abandoned motels and military bases. Will the mainstream news look into this? Will you hear anything about this from our government? This is a big story. These are monstrous allegations. This should wake up every American citizen as to what is really going on geopolitically speaking. This is Owen Schroyer for Infowars.com.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo. Americanism, not globalism. Americanism, not globalism.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on. You will find Brain Force, Survival Shield X2, and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.